Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bob Scheer, a member of the Bioconductor core group, and it's my pleasure today to welcome you to the last session of the day between the session between you and dinner and drinks. As you can see, Bioconductor in the Latin American bioinformatics landscape, challenges and opportunity. Our speakers today are Diana Gonzalez Padilla and Renee Garcia Flores. One or two housekeeping things, which you've probably heard several times already. Let me see if I can do it as well as the previous chairs. If you're a virtual attendee, please enter your questions for the speaker in the Q&A tab. We'll be taking the questions at the end, and we'll try to distribute evenly between in-person and virtual. If you click any of the tabs on the left-hand side of your screen, you will leave the session, but you can quickly re-enter by clicking the right one. In-person attendees, you can either enter your questions in the Q&A or just raise your hand. When if you're called upon, please stand and state your question clearly so the online participants can hear it. And without further ado, welcome. Welcome, Diana and Renee.
Well, hi. Thanks for being here. I'm Renee. She's Diana. We're gonna start a little bit talking about us. We studied genomic sciences. I'm an incoming PhD student at Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. I'm really nervous about it. And currently I'm working at the Data Science Lab at the Liver Institute for Brain Development, which is under the guidance of Leo Collado. And you can find me in here.
And yeah, I'm an undergraduate student of genomic sciences too in Mexico, the National Autonomous University of Mexico. And I'm also a member of the data science team at the Liver Institute for Brain Development.
As we know, the Bioconductor project is focused on containing multiple R packages for the analysis, comprehension, access, and publication of genomic data generated by wet lab. But also, and I will say most importantly, is an integral project that has been promoting for more than 2 decades the development of sharing free open source software in computational biology and bioinformatics, which allows the creation of collaborative and supportive scientific environments, while also facilitating the reproducibility of scientific results. The main goal of this project is to impulse the creation of durable, accessible, and manageable software development, and environments for statistical genomics under the principles of transparency, pursuit of reproducibility, and efficiency of development.
So what's the impact of Bioconductor? This project has made it possible to acquire, publish, manage, transform, and model data. And for more than 2 decades, it has facilitated the accessibility and reproducibility of the scientific results. In the last 2 years, In 2021, more than 2,000 software packages were available in the Bioconductor repository for analysis of data that range from single-cell sequencing data to flow cytometry data. And of course, all these packages have been produced by the Bioconductor team, by members of the team, and also by other international contributors. Nowadays, we know that there's a big community of developers and data scientists that exists in which there's diversity, collaboration, support, and people is always welcome. So as part of this initiative, the Bioconductor team organizes these courses, conferences, and workshops, both in person and virtually. Some of these events include the BIOC Annual Conference, in which we are, the BIOC Asia Congress, in which the talks are also multilingual translated, which I think is a big progress to include more people, and also the European Bioconductor meeting. So I take this information from the annual report of 2021. And Bioconductor has become this crucial tool for the genomic research in the world, with more than 38,000 PubMed central citation for Bioconductor. That's for the last year. However, there are some questions that remain. So, has the impact of Bioconductor been the same throughout the world? What's the real scope of a project in underrepresented countries such as Mexico and other Latin American countries? What are the current challenges and possible alternatives to start bridging the gap?
Well, the obvious answer to if it's had the same impact throughout the world is no. In 2020, the Bioconductor website, which, well, this figure shows the number of visits per each country. And we can see that it had more than 1 million users, of which 1/3 came from the United States, 15% from China, 5% from the United Kingdom, and all the other percentages, I will say it's like 50%, was distributed in the other 200 countries. This data also was similar in 2019. And this can be seen as a reflection of the actual state of the project around the world, where the US and Europe, Asia too, are the ones with more visits. And also the regions where most of the in-person meetings or courses are held. Furthermore, in Latin America, something I would like to highlight is that most of the points we can see here, for example, in Mexico and Argentina, Brazil, are near the regions of the capitals. So here's Mexico City, Buenos Aires, and Brasilia, which obviously correlates with.
Can I correct you?
I'm sorry.
There's no point to the top of Brazil. That's so Paulo.
Okay, sorry.
The most populous.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't do bioinformatics in Brazil.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks for the correction.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make the correction for the ones online. This is not Brasilia. This is Sao Paulo. But yeah, as Leo mentioned, these are the most populous regions in the countries. And of course, that correlates with other statistics of the living environment in those countries. So yeah, now focusing on our own experience.
Yeah, so we as Mexican students can say from our experiences and perspectives what's the real scope of Bioconductor in Mexico. In my case, I started working with Bioconductor packages and methods when I started working on a real project, the Smoking Mouse project at the Liver Institute for Brain Development. And it was Dr. Collado Torres who actually introduced me to the Bioconductor community and world. So that now I'm able to use my own data and methods of Bioconductor to track results. But I can say that I'm not an isolated case. I think most of my classmates, teachers, and students that I know in Mexico, also in the world of bioinformatics, have used Bioconductor consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah, coming from the same program, I will say we had a similar experience. My first conscious approach to Bioconductor was on a course I took that actually was taught by Leo Collado and by an initiative that we will talk more about later. But yeah, my program only taught me R and R Studio, and if I heard something about Bioconductor in classes, I can recall. I will say I didn't. So yeah, as Diana mentioned, the use of Bioconductor in our program, which is a program focused on genomic sciences, is more like passive learning. You don't actually hear about Bioconductor by itself. And something to say is that this is from our experiences. which I will say they are like quite privileged because our program is really good at this. But for other undergrad programs that have also the component of computational biology or bioinformatics, maybe they are even in a worse position where if they learn a bioconductor, I will say it's a slower learning process and maybe a lot less lonely.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the challenges that we identify. First of all, of course, there's this major educational problem in Mexico that is quite complex. So according to data from SEP, that is the Secretary for Public Education in Mexico, and also the INEGI, that is the National Institute of Statistics and Geography, only a quarter of the total population of young adults in Mexico are enrolled in higher education institutions, so they go to the university. And of that quarter of people, just a third part of them, the 8% of the total students, actually manage to finish their studies in college. So this is a result of complicated economic and social problems. This is actually an endless discussion, but you know that also has an impact on the bioconductor scope, right? Which is a much more deep problem that narrow the academic opportunities and block the inclusion of Mexican students in the scientific world.
So yeah, another problem is the absence of promotion and investment in science. The source of this goes beyond what the Bioconductor project can do. But actually, we were talking yesterday to Jocelyn Chavez, which is right there, the one in pink. And she is right now the leader of 2 projects in Mexico, which we'll talk about later. But we were asking her, which will you say is one of the main limitations for when you're trying to do courses or maybe meetings? And the economic thing came to the conversation in the sense of when you're trying to invite people to teach and that kind of stuff, you actually sometimes can pay them, and also to use spaces of institutes and everything. There's not a lot of investment from the government, and I will say there's no even a lot of promotion for Latin American countries to learn about maybe funding opportunities in the US that could help. But if there's no promotion about it, you can actually do anything with it. Yeah.
The third challenge that we identify is that there's a reduced community of bioinformatics. So there are these very few institutions that are involved in genomics and bioinformatics in our country, such as the Center for Genomic Sciences in Cuernavaca, Morelos, from which we come, and the International Laboratory of Human Genome Research in Curitiba, Querétaro. So there's a reduced group of people working involved in bioinformatics in Mexico. The proportion is even smaller for the people that is involved in the Bioconductor project. But we can say that the community has increased in recent years. And that leads us to the fourth challenge.
Yeah, which is the lack of Bioconductor instructors. This, I would like to clarify, is not that in Mexico or other Latin American countries, there's no, what's the word for it? Entrenadas, trained people to be instructors. But correlated with the other points, these people usually, or sometimes, yeah, most of the times don't have the opportunities to come to meetings at Bioconductor or get training opportunities by Bioconductor and be known by the community, which will help to Bioconductor help them to teach people in their countries. So all of these points correlate and end up with sorry, I got lost. But yeah, what I want to say is just that in Mexico and other Latin American countries, related to the other points, there's not a lot of instructors, and this puts another limitation on making meetings and courses on those countries.
And finally, one important thing is that there's a big lag of events and courses occurring in Mexico. According to all the Bioconductor annual reports since the project started in 2002, most of the courses and conferences have been held in the US and in some European countries. And very few events have taken place in Brazil, Uruguay, and Mexico, which reveals that very few events or even recent events and conferences of Bioconductor are actually occurring in Latin America. So once we have addressed what are the challenges, we can also talk about the existing initiatives. So Mexican people, Mexican researchers and scientists developed this initiative, the Community of Bioinformatics Software Developers, CTSB in Spanish, in which all these people, scientists in the fields of genomics, data science, and bioinformatics, help teach people of Latin American countries how to program in R, how to perform genomic and statistical analysis, and how to create and share packages in GitHub and Bioconductor. So the main goal of this praiseworthy project is to increase the local contribution of Latin Americans and also the participation in the development of open software and to empower local developers, educate new generations, train them with all the skills for bioinformatics. And at the same time, with all this activity, this project encourages the national and international collaboration, cooperation, and promotes the integration of people into the scientific world, including, of course, the bioconductor community.
Now, Our Ladies, that I will say the global Our Ladies community has a similar goal as Bioconductor, which is to encourage and facilitate participation in multiple fields of research by making valuable tools available. In the case of Our Ladies in Mexico, the person in charge right now is Jocelyn Chavez, which I mentioned before, and since the beginning of the project, they have grown to have 18 chapters in the country, which is a huge step forward, giving, teaching art to other people. And some of these monthly courses they held have around 50 attendants each.
Yeah, and I forgot to tell you, but we have stickers of the CTSB here. Okay, so the question is, what else can be done? What's missing, right? So first, we think that, of course, we need more events in Mexico and Latin America. So as you can see, there's an increasing interest and there are big efforts in Mexico of multiple groups to build the solid Mexican and Latin American community on bioinformatics and bioconductor. So we think that more bioconductor events should be organized in these regions to attract researchers from different parts of the world and provide opportunities for local students and researchers with these networking activities. And something that is also very important is that organizing events in these countries will be more reachable for local people because there are always limited budgets or problems with the visa and things like that. So it will be good.
Also, two other points are support local trainings. We can do this by supporting research and students to become local instructors in their own countries, by giving them the resources to be able to help people. And also, we can do small but significant individual contributions by, for example, joining and giving promotion to local initiatives. In this case, we talk about CTSB and Our Ladies in Mexico, but also other initiatives in Latin America. And given our scientific experience and our strong background in bioinformatics, of course, this will be really helpful to make the community grow.
Okay, so just as a conclusion, in just a couple of decades, this Bioconductor project has consolidated a big supportive community of scientists that develop mature packages, help to solve questions, computational issues, and also present their own research. But we cannot deny that there is this large underrepresentation of Latin American countries in the development of work and also in the academic environments. We truly believe in the power of collaboration, and all these efforts increase the scope of Bioconductor in more parts of the world and submit more enthusiastic proposals and launch projects, offering opportunities to learn and to work, create a more diverse and inclusive community. So there are many things that we cannot change directly in our countries, but at least we can start bringing up the problem in spaces such as this. That's why we're presenting this discussion, raising awareness and discussing what needs to be addressed and what else can be done. So yeah, at this point, we would like to hear if you know of any other efforts in Latin American or other underrepresented regions that aim to stimulate bioinformatics. What other challenges do you think must be addressed or other proposals?
Okay, don't go away. So thank you very much. That was really fascinating and I thought very well organized presentation. Questions for? Yeah,
Sir, it's pretty nice to see.
please stand and speak up if you could.
I'm Lucio. I'm actually from Brazil, and yeah, it's really nice to see the presentation. Yeah, in Brazil we face most of the same challenges, I would say. For example, we have actually like 3 or 4 Brazilians here in the conference. Most of them, they are here just because they were already in the US by another here, because we would not be able to come from Brazil just for the conference for sure.
Yeah, like it's more than $2K just to pay the tickets back and forth without thinking of where you're staying anyway. So like it's completely impossible. Like especially like if you think of undergrad level. Just like it's completely impossible.
It's not turning on, yeah.
It's on. Oh, no, it's on. It's completely impossible to think of, especially on undergrad level, that someone would be able to get like $2K plus their housing to come to a conference that is a 3-day conference. That is someone that's not already here doing something else. So yeah, like it's very hard. Like I heard before that you guys did an event recent in Bioconductor in Mexico, I think. A course of Bioconductor in Mexico, kind of recent.
It's going to be next week.
Oh, next week. Yeah. So like which is cool. Like in Brazil, we had one like 10 years ago, like 5 years ago or something. But it's still very hard. I was just talking to Leo. Like for me in Brazil, the biggest problem today that there's not enough material in Portuguese, and people don't speak English in Brazil. I don't know if in Mexico is the same, but at least for the Brazilian community, that's the biggest problem. And also because all the material that we have for undergrad bioinformatics is all in Python, so people simply don't get into R.
Yeah, that point, that's the bell point of actually the material is definitely something that we need to tackle if you really want the Bioconductor to be a successful community, to have representation of those communities, especially on more undergrad level. And also, that point of having more outreach programs, focus on that. And I don't know how an organization like Bioconductor can actually support having more diverse community. And it looks like we are already trying to do that. There is already an initiative of that, but definitely we can leverage more that as a community. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, then nice presentation.
I can go. Very nice presentation. So another important thing to remember is you mentioned Art Ladies, which is a great example. We're not the only ones trying to do this. So I come from a flow cytometry side. So Latin Flow is one of the affiliated societies for ISAC. that does a lot of work in Latin America. There's another one, I'm blanking on the name, I can look on the ISAC website, but I was at the conference in May, and it was active work by US-based researchers to also try to make more flow cytometry resources available to Latin American countries. Obviously, that was not in the context of bioconductor packages, because we still have the same situation of not everybody looking at a specific area also does bioconductor. But there's also microscopy societies and others that do use the bioconductor packages, and it might be worth more of a, rather than just use bioconductor in general, find the actual areas that would be benefiting from using specific targeted bioconductor packages and targeted trainings in that kind of regard.
Thanks. That was a really nice presentation. I don't know if you were at the Birds of a Feather earlier, where I talked about the Bioconductor Carpentries program. We are trying to see if we can support the Latin American community as well through that. We've recently started onboarding an instructor who's based in Mexico. And they want to try and run workshops there, so we can hopefully support through that way. Just talking with Isabella and Lucio there about the Portuguese translation of bioconductor material. We can hopefully work on that in Spanish then as well, because we know there is a need. One other question I had was, so I lived in Australia for a good number of years, and there the BioC Asia conference was often run as a satellite meeting alongside the Australian Bioinformatics conference. So it made it easier for people to then attend. So you didn't, if you were going to the main conference, you could then take the half day that I think it was to attend the Bioconductor. Are there large or bioinformatics conferences or meetings in Latin America, Mexico, Brazil, that you could maybe start to grow a bioconductor meeting out of?
In Brazil, there is the Bioinformatics Society conference, like the Computational Biology Society, the Bioinformatics Society, and the Genetics Society. It's actually easier to get to the Genetics Society because the other two are doing everything in Python.
Those are the places that actually we need to put more
yeah,
hours.
but the problem is like these society meetings, I am on the organization of the genetics and the bioinformatics for next year, the conferences, and like they have like it's so much bureaucracy to get anything inside. Like I was talking to Jocelyn to try to bring a bioconductor meeting as a satellite of one of the conferences. And I talked to Jocelyn, I wrote a proposal, and then I went to the person of the conference, and there was so much bureaucracy to get into that point that it was very hard, at least for me, to do it. I don't know if the girls tried it before in Mexico.
No. We wouldn't know. Maybe Leo knows if there's in Mexico big conferences like this. I will say no, but I'm not sure.
Like Alejandra Medina, who's a co-founder of the CDSB. She's been serving at what is it, the ICSB? And I think, yeah, that one. And she has tried to organize some conferences in Mexico, but I don't think she's tried to do them as satellite versions of Bioconductor and R next to those conferences. But yeah, I mean, since I have the mic, I also want to mention that actually in BioC 2017 here in Boston, I think back then it was Marcel, me, Alejandro Reyes from Mexico, Tiago from TCH BioLinks from Brazil. And so even though it doesn't look like a lot, right now we have Diana, Rene, Isabella, Lucio, Jocelyn, right, Samuel. And so something I highlighted when actually Jocelyn made her first bioconductor package with a few other people was that we added three bioconductor developers from Mexico. That, like, if you look at it as an absolute number, is small. You look at it as a relative difference, it's huge. So, I mean, if you ask me from 2017, is this the amount of Latin Americans I would like to see in 2023? Probably not. I would like to see more, right? But I think, you know, the seeds are growing well, I would say, right? So I'm still optimistic. And that's, I think, the challenge with all of these things. There's a lot of things that can, there's a lot of roadblocks, a lot of things that can demotivate you along the way. I mean, you just mentioned admins, or they mentioned money and a lot of things. So I think that's the biggest challenge, like keeping the motivation to keep doing some of these activities. But also, if there's more of us, then we can spread the load, the workload. Now, like Justin is basically in charge of the CDSB workshop next week. I don't really have to do much now.
Hi, thanks. It's a great talk. I really appreciate these kind of efforts. So I have a more general question. So I heard about in Bioconductor, also like from our studio, like people are trying to translate some of the packages and their documentations into other languages. But meanwhile, I just wonder if you want to look at you want to read the paper behind those packages to better understand the methods, and the papers will still be in English. So what do you do about that?
I think the problem is like with the first
Take
step.
the mic.
I think I don't know if anyone agrees with me. I think if at least the first step, that's like before learning the paper, is not in the language, it gets even harder to get people into. Because at least in Brazil, people, when you start the undergrad, nobody knows English. So like if at least like the person can start the undergrad and start learning Portuguese, like the most basic tutorials. I'm not saying even like to translate the full RNA-seq, a single cell analysis tutorial. I would say the most basic bioconductor tutorials, like I think it should be an effort to be at least translated, to get like at least an easier way in.
Yeah, taking into account of what we had earlier today also, yeah, I think the Carpentries incubator initiative is definitely the best place to start that. The material that is generated there is definitely the best point to start having translations, having more diversity on that point, and also training people. Like the instructor program is actually a really nice initiative that we definitely need to take ownership of that and getting the Latin community or any other underrepresented community and actually making that jump and organizing ourselves. Don't really just wait for the Bioconductor the head to really support us. Since we are here today, that's definitely something that we can do it and then spread the word at least as any let's say any no, I forgot the word. Yeah, but any public outreach program, like it's done by the people that is part of the community. Community building effort depends on the people, so we need to do anything.
I have a suggestion. I don't know if you guys have a mail list with all the Bioconductor like in Mexico stuff, but we could do a mail list of Bioconductor Latin America just to share all the stuff.
They have a Slack channel.
They have a Slack?
We have a Slack.
Yeah, we need
Perfect.
to-
I just need to get into that then.
I have a general question. I don't know the answer to, but is there a way within like your R package to actually have it formatted to come up in a different language? I know like for R Markdown, there's been some work on the side as far as like if you set it in the header, you can change the language, but I think that's automatically generated. I don't think it's hard coded.
There is a way, but it's not straightforward. It's pretty technical to add a translation to We tried it in BioC Manager, and we have a branch that has translations. But yeah, it's a little complicated. But yeah, there is a way. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I don't see as like actually translating function names or function messages as being the best approach to solve that problem. But actually having actual, if you write a VNet, then the VNet being translated, the actual material on the Bioconductor website being translated, those are the things that diminish the activation barrier of someone that don't know English too. Because at the moment that they know the name of the, at least from my experience, yeah, that everyone after the point they get functional work skills that they can deal with the package names or with the message, that kind of thing. So actually have, and that actually can also solve the problem of the paper, because if you have a good, at least the Bioconductor itself already has this wonderful structure that having the vignette is actually, the vignette is much more useful than the actual paper, not 9% of the time. So that's one place that needs to put more effort on translation.
It's like, I mean, in general, in Bioconductor, documentation is welcome, but it's hard to reward it, right? Years ago, Bioconductor did partner with F1000 Research. So they had the Bioconductor Gateway, and there's a Bioconductor package that helps you make an RMD file that then generates a text file that they can then submit to F1000 Research. And the goal was to try to promote people work that want to write workflow packages. A workflow package in Bioconductor is one that explains how you can use more than one package to do one thing. And so with that in mind, like I would say, like, yes, there's been some people that have submitted things to F1000, but not that many, because F1000 at that point, you get a DOI, you get a peer review paper, it counts for your publications, all of that. And so with a vignette in a different language, it's very hard, I think, to publish that. Like, I don't even know what journal you would submit, or if any journal would say, like, actually, you know, why don't you just take your paper and put it on Google Translate, right?
All of this machine learning.
Yeah. So, because I mean, we have with CDSB and stuff, we have full repositories on GitHub, like checked on GitHub Actions and stuff in Spanish, explaining things. But like, we haven't published them because, like, I haven't seen like where to submit them, right? And so, I mean, I know Bioconductor provides the OIs, so that could maybe be a low barrier of like, okay, you submit it as a workflow package to Bioconductor. It's in a completely different language than English. It'll probably be a problem for the reviewers, but you get a DOI at that point. It's not peer reviewed, but I don't know what other carrot you can give out. I don't know, maybe some money. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just thinking about the previous comment about how, or comments about how travel to conferences is a big barrier. Like, so do you think then having some online sessions would help? Like, would people engage with those if they were available for tutorials, workshops in Spanish or Portuguese?
I will say definitely yes. It may take a couple of years to reach like some big number of attendance, but I think with the right amount of sharing the information, I will say definitely.
Because have you tried any of that so far? Like, have you done any teaching through Spanish online on Bioconductor or? Oh.
Yeah, since in 2018, the community for bioinformatics in software development was funded in Mexico with Leo and other colleagues. And since then, we are holding annual summer workshops, always in Spanish and centered around Bioconductor and focus on like advanced learning, either about how to write our packages and Bioconductor specific packages. Also like for advanced settings from our studio or for our projects management. We have teach a couple of years about single cell analysis, metagenomics using Bioconductor packages, and all of that materials are available there in the website. Since the pandemic started, we have been holding these events online, and we definitely saw an increasing number of participants in our courses. At the beginning, probably we were about 15 people taking the course, and since we are holding the, and of course they had a limitation even within the same country, because the course was held in a place close to Mexico City, but of course there were people from other sites around the country and not always having the resources to travel to take the course in person. So now that we are holding the events online, we are having like participants from around the country, but also from other countries in Latin America, and even from people that are Latin Americans but living in Europe, for example, right? So definitely that's an advantage, like having courses or either small meetups or long workshops. That's definitely a very helpful resource. Yeah. And also like keeping that materials online definitely makes a change. Like, yeah, about the participation. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, we come from the University Federal of Minas Gerais in Brazil. It's considered the biggest graduate program in bioinformatics in Brazil. And we do in-person workshop. It's not Bioconductor related in any way or focused in any way, but it's the big, it was the biggest, yeah, at least in 2020, we did it, we do it since 2016 was the first edition. We are doing the itinerary, and during the pandemic, we try to do a big event, like more workshop focused online, and at least to our knowledge, it was the biggest event in bioinformatics event in South America until today. And
we had like that country point that we had like 1,000 people simultaneously watching.
And it's a big, it's a big, and but the other point I would say that also supporting chapters like our ladies have could be like related to specific institutions, trying to get like a bioconductor chapter in X institution or X city is like our ladies, the same model that our ladies use, or those more community-based efforts is easy to actually get the community to know each other, because sometimes we see that there are people interested, but they don't really connect, but we don't have an official channel of connecting. So I don't know if anyone has other.
Sorry if this was already talked about, but are there any opportunities to get funding through alternative means, like initially getting money to do outreach in communities, say like in New York, where there's a large Hispanic population, going into high schools, and basically the funding could go towards translating materials either internally or hiring translators to translate those materials. Those materials would then be used for workshops and outreach like that, but then could be shared with the broader community as a public resource.
Yeah, at least though at least on the reality, I know it's really hard to get funding for anything. Most of the efforts we know are actually voluntary based. So I don't know if you have any specific resource fund for that. And mostly especially when you come from those underrepresented communities or harsh environments, most of the time you do it voluntarily, at least a way to get exposed to any other reality, just to be here, or just to be in contact with the persons that are important in your community. So it's much more a community-led effort than really getting mandated or getting funding for specific things. But yeah, definitely, if there is funding or channels to get that, we need to get to organize that at least.
It's now just a couple minutes after 5:15, and I loved listening to this conversation, and I invite you to continue the conversation, but I think we've been cut off from our feed to the people who are remote. So I guess I would like to first thank Diana and Renee, and if you had a couple closing remarks. Thank all of you for being here, and thank you for a fascinating presentation. As I say, unless we get booted out by the organizers, please continue the conversation. Thank you so much.